and welcome to the First Unitarian Society. My name is Kelly Crocker, and I am one of the ministers here. Today, I'm joined by my colleague, the Reverend Kelly Asbruth Jackson, and the worship team of Drew Collins, Linda Warren, Stephen Gregorius, Daniel Carnes, and a very special welcome and thank you to our musical guest, Marilyn Chohaney. The vision of First Unitarian Society is growing souls, connecting with one another, and embodying our Unitarian Universalist values in our lives, our community, and our world. If you are visiting us today, welcome. We're so very glad that you are with us. If you would like more information about our programs and activities, please stop by the welcome table located in the Commons, out these doors to your right, next to the elevator. We also hope that you will be able to stay and join us for coffee hour immediately following service, which is also right out here in the Commons. You may have noticed on your way in this morning that Porch Light is here with us, selling delicious items that make wonderful holiday gifts, and we thank you for supporting their good work. And for those connecting with us virtually today, welcome. We are glad that you are with us as well. We hope that you will be able to take a moment and watch the announcement slides following today's service to learn more about upcoming programs and activities. And now, I invite you to join me in a moment of silence as we center ourselves and bring ourselves fully into this time, joining together once again in community.
Come we now, out of the darkness of our unknowing and the dusk of our dreaming.
Come we now from far places.
Come we now into the twilight of our awakening and the reflection of our gathering.
Come we now all together.
We bring, unilluminated, our dark caves of doubting. We seek, unbedazzled, the clear light of understanding.
May the sparks of our joining kindle our resolve, brighten our spirits, reflect our love, and unshadow our days.
Come we now, enter the dawning.
And we invite you now to rise in all the ways that we do as we join together in our words of affirmation. Our chalice holds the elements of the four directions: earth, air, fire, water. The lamp oil for earth, the air that feeds the flame, the fire we light. The chalice itself, the cup, the symbol of water. We light our chalice in honor of the light we need to guide us. The light of our shared faith, the light of loving community, the light of love, joy, and hope.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. And now let's sing together our opening hymn. Number 1055, How Sweet the Darkness. When windows that are black and cold are lit anew with fires of gold, when dusk in quiet shall descend and darkness come once more a friend, when wings pursue their pride storms of deadly rain. And when the sky is swept of wars, and it keeps but gentle moon and stars, that peaceful sky, that harmless air, how sweet the darkness there.
Please be seated. We're going to have you all stay in your seats for our story today because we've got some stuff going on up here. This isn't usually here, is it? Oh, the holidays. They're changing everything up. It is the holiday time, and today we're celebrating winter. Last night was our winter solstice service. And I'm wondering, before we get into our story about some friends who have a holiday tradition, do any of you have some holiday traditions that you'd like to share? What's your favorite part of the holidays? Yeah, Daphne. Yeah. Presents at Christmas. How many people like that one? Right, yeah. Do you have one, Rue? Mm-hmm. Turn off all the lights on solstice and use candles for light instead. Oh, I like that one.
Nice.
Anybody else have one they want to share? Guys. Oh, yeah. Summers. Stockings? Oh, that's a good one. Summer stockings. Okay. All right, here we go. Where can it be? Thought Thomas. Maybe I left it outside. He looked in the tall grasses.
What are you looking for, Thomas? Asked Lucy. Have you lost something?
Yes, said Thomas. Yes, I have. Just this morning, I fetched my fruits from my special fruit drying spot. Such a beautiful basket of dried up fruits, apples, berries, and plums, apricots, grapes, and cherries, and now I can't find it. I must have set it down somewhere, but I've looked everywhere twice.
He looked around as if the basket of fruits might suddenly appear, but it didn't. Lucy looked around too. How mysterious, she said.
I won't be able to make the winter cake, said Thomas. A winter's eve without winter cake? I ask you, what kind of holiday is that?
The holiday isn't only about winter cake, said Lucy.
I am bereft, said Thomas, forlorn.
An icy blast lifted Lucy briefly from the ground. I'd better get going, Thomas, she said. It's starting to bluster. But don't be sad. We'll have a wonderful holiday. We always do.
I don't see how, Thomas called out as she flew away. I honestly don't, he said to himself. Perhaps I should have invited her inside, he added, as the winds grew stronger and snowier. Fly safely, he said softly. He knew she could no longer hear him, but hoped it would help. Worried, he stepped into his tree and shut the door.
I hope you find your fruits, Lucy called.
The gentle snowfall had thickened into a storm. Lucy flew into snowflakes the size of her face, and there were so many of them. She struggled to stay upright as frigid gusts tossed her this way and that. What did it matter that she could barely keep her eyes open? All she could see was white.
Was she even moving forward? She flapped her wings harder, and then, flop, she fell to the ground.
Lucy lay there stunned. For a moment, she could not move. Heavy flakes of wet snow piled up on her. She knew it wouldn't be long before they covered her up completely. With a mighty effort, she struggled to her feet and leaned into the fierce winds. Amid the pelting snow, there were fragrant whiffs of something else, something friendly.
Tea, she said aloud. Cocoa and pastries. She listened and heard the faint, muffled buzz of cheery voices. Following the fragrant whiffs and the faint murmurs, she hopped through the blizzard to an opening between snow-laden boughs of an evergreen. She found herself at the door of a tea room. "I'll just stop in," she said to herself, "and wait for the storm to pass."
Inside the tea room, everyone was talking about the weather.
Snowy weather puts me in the mood for the holiday.
I am thinking of hibernating. It is so weathery.
I never hibernate.
It is holiday weather, that's for sure.
I've never seen so much weather.
Well, almost everyone. Lucy's ears perked up.
Found me a nice basket of dried up fruits this morning. Perfect for winter cake.
Lucy turned and saw a tall, sleek animal with small, round ears speaking to the server as he paid his bill. He held a basket filled with beautiful dried up fruits: apples, berries, and plums, apricots, grapes, and cherries. She couldn't hear all of what he said. It was so noisy, but she had heard enough. Hastily, she paid for her tea and biscuit and hurried after that vile beast. Outside, the storm had ended as quickly as it began.
There it is, Thomas's dried up fruit.
I feel as if someone is following me. Already, the winter sun was turning the top of the snow crisp and sparkly.
I don't know what I'll do, but I must do something.
I must be imagining it.
But wait, what was this? The good-for-nothing fruit thief was knocking on a door, Thomas's door. The door opened, and Thomas stood in the doorway.
I think this may be yours, said the scoundrel. I found it in the meadow. Someone at the tea room told me where to find you. Oh my, said Thomas. Thank you so much. My pleasure, said the stranger. A holiday without winter cake is a poor one indeed. Good afternoon, then.
The stranger turned and walked away, whistling a cheery tune. As he passed the bush where Lucy sat, he glanced up absent-mindedly and said, "Lovely day, isn't it?" Lucy managed to close her beak. Then she opened it and said, yes, isn't it?"
Lucy fluttered down and pecked at Thomas's door. So many visitors, he said when he opened it. What a spectacular day this is. I am jubilant, extra happy. Lucy hopped inside and told him her tale.
"I feel so foolish," she said. "I jumped to conclusions."
Everyone makes mistakes, said Thomas. I feel foolish too. I remember now that I set my basket down to catch snowflakes on my tongue. The first flakes of the season are the most scrumptious. I guess I forgot to pick it back up. Thomas smiled. How kind of him, though. What a noble chap.
"Yes," said Lucy.
Let's make him a winter cake, said Thomas.
"Yes," said Lucy. "Let's."
So they chopped, they sifted, they measured, they poured, and they stirred. They almost forgot the walnuts. More chopping, more stirring. They popped the pan into the oven and set the timer. While the cake baked, they sang songs and gossiped. The winter cake, when it came out, was a beauty. Golden brown with bits of color like jewels, and it smelled divine.
Thomas drizzled the white icing over it, like snow on a lumpy hillside. He lifted it onto a pretty plate and tied a ribbon around it. "I've thought of something," said Lucy.
What? Said Thomas.
"We don't know where this guy lives," said Lucy. "We don't even know his name."
Said Thomas. That is true. The two friends looked at one another. They looked at the winter cake on its plate with its ribbon. They looked down at its shadows, blue shapes on the snow. And what did they find? A trail of crispy footprints leading from where they stood away through the forest.
"That's it," cried Lucy. "We can follow his footprints."
Yes, said Thomas. Off we go.
And off they went. At first it was easy, but soon there were obstacles.
And difficulties.
There were icy streams and tangled thickets. Daylight dwindled.
In the murky twilight, Thomas and Lucy did not see the precipice. The pretty plate was broken, but the winter cake wasn't. Still, it was cold and dark, and they were far from home, lost, perhaps.
The shivering friends huddled together for warmth. "Thomas," said Lucy, "I see a light. I think it's from a candle or a small fire. Look."
Thomas looked, and sure enough, a faint glow shone from a crevice in the darkness. Cautiously, they crept toward it. As they drew near, they heard humming. They arrived at the opening of a hollow in the bank and peered inside.
And there he was. He sat alone next to a stub of burning cattail. He hummed furiously and festively. Then, abruptly, he stopped. "It's no use," he said. "Hum as I might, it's winter's eve and I am all alone. I ask you, what kind of holiday is that?" Lucy stepped inside the hollow. "But you're not alone," she said.
"Gah!" shrieked the poor fellow, jumping to his hind feet.
"Gah!" squawked Lucy, hiding her head under her wing.
"Ah!" bellowed Thomas, flinging the winter cake into the air. It fell to the ground, and this time it broke. "We come in peace," said Thomas, "bearing winter cake, which is in pieces." "Ha ha, pieces? Get it?"
"Oh," said the flustered stranger, "it's you, and you. Oh me, oh my, come in, come in. Would you like some—"
He looked around the bare, dismal hollow.
"I'm afraid there isn't anything," he said. "I've only just moved in."
"There's winter cake," said Thomas, picking up the pieces. "There's light. There's you. There's us. What more do we need?"
"Let's build the fire up a bit, though," said Lucy.
They stepped outside and gathered sticks for a fire. Soon it burned merrily, warming them as they sat in its golden glow. "We traveled a long way to find you," said Thomas. "However did you come to be in our neck of the woods? And how did you come to be here? Also, what is your name?"
Their host laughed. "I'm Tobin," he said, "and it all started with a mistake." "So many good things do," said Lucy. "Tell us yours."
Outside the hollow, snow was falling again. Inside, a friendship was being born. Tobin's story was the first of many told that night, and for years and holidays to come. The three friends made a tradition of taking their winter cake to a bare hollow and telling stories around a merry fire. I ask you, what kind of holiday is that?
A jubilant one, you might say. Extra happy.
A little bit mysterious.
A wonderful holiday every time.
Go your way in peace, wander as you may. Blessed is the path you take, may love guide you on your way.
Our children may head out to classes now. Thank you.
I invite you now into this time of giving and receiving, where we give freely and generously to this offering, which sustains and strengthens our community here and also our outreach offering recipient, who this week is the Just Dane Eviction Prevention Program. Our gifts from this and all other services throughout the holiday season provide a great deal of the funding that runs this program. Sometimes the difference between a family being out on the street or staying in their home can be a little help with rent. With your help, Justine and Joining Forces for Families are helping people to prevent eviction and homelessness. There are multiple ways to share your gifts this morning. There are baskets that are, being passed. Oh, that's very exciting. I'm excited to be passing the basket again, friends. The basket's now being passed in which you can place cash or checks, and you will see on the screen that you can donate directly from our website, fusmadison.org, and see there the text to give information as well. We thank you for your generosity and your faith in this life we create together. Thank you so much. So I want to tell you a story now, and when I tell a story, I'd like to say where it comes from so that you know a little bit about its place of origin, but this story actually comes from a whole bunch of different places, because there are stories, various stories, about Coyote stealing fire that are found among a number of the indigenous nations of this continent, mostly in the West. So some of them are a little bit more different than this. Some of them are more like the version that I'm going to tell. The one that I'm going to tell this morning probably owes the most to the Kuruk version of the story, that's indigenous people from part of what is now called California. So here's the way the story goes. A long time ago, when the world was young, and the people were pretty new to being people, it got very cold and very dark. And the people had very little to eat, and they had very little to keep them warm, and they were very scared. Now, Coyote has a good pelt of fur and good eyes to see in the dark. So he was okay. But he was worried about the people, and he wanted to do something. And he knew that way up at the top of the mountain, there lived the fire spirits. They had a little house up there. And outside of their house, they had a fire that burned all the time. They kept it going all the time. But they wouldn't let anyone share it with them. No one else was allowed to sit around the fire with them, and they wouldn't let anyone take some of the fire away. So he thought, if he could get some of that fire, then the people would have a way to be warm and some light to see by. But he didn't know how to do it. So he thought that he would consult the smartest people that he knew, his sisters. Now, this was a long time ago, when the world was young. So you have to understand that his sisters were not other coyotes. His sisters were 3 huckleberries that lived inside of his stomach. I am taking no licenses here. So he asked his sisters, how can I get the fire away from the fire spirits? And his sisters said, if we tell you how to do that, you're just going to take credit for the idea again. That's what you always do. And he said, well, he thought for a second, and he knew that his sisters were afraid of hailstorms. So he cried out to the sky, open up and send down the hail. And his sisters, despite living inside of his belly where you'd think they'd be safe, were afraid of the hailstorm. And I'm starting to understand that better now after the unexpected 20-minute snowstorm we had this morning. But they were afraid of the hailstorm, so they said, all right, stop asking for hail, we'll give you a plan. And they did. They gave him a good plan for how to get the fire. And then Coyote said, yes, that was my plan all along. So he knew that he needed some help. And he went to ask the other beings of the natural world, can you help me with this plan? And you know, not all of them were on board. Stone doesn't like to move, so it wasn't going to be much help. And water doesn't like to mess around with fire. That's just not the way that that works. But he was able to get some help from squirrel and chipmunk and frog and wood. So he wasn't going to discriminate between animal versus vegetable. Everybody was welcome to help in this plan. So he got his four assistants, yeah, that's right, there's four assistants, and he lined them up on the mountain, one near the base, one a little ways up the mountain, one a little bit further, but he took the job right up at the top for himself, and he waited outside of the fire spirit's house, and he watched what they did. And every so often, the fire spirit whose job it was to tend the fire would leave the fire and go to the door of the house and call out for her sister to come and relieve her, right? This was a changing of the guard. And if you don't know, whenever the guard shift changes, that's the right time to steal something. If you need advice on how to do a bank robbery successfully, this is one of the most important lessons. So he waited. And when they changed guards again, he dashed forward and he snatched a branch, burning branch, right out of the fire. And then he ran down the mountain with it as fast as he could go, because he knew that the fire spirits were very fast runners. And just as he was getting to Squirrel, he saw a squirrel in the distance. He knew the fire spirit was right behind him. He threw the branch for Squirrel to catch, and just then, the fire spirit grabbed his tail from behind, and it turned white. And that's why coyotes' tails are white until this very day. Now, he threw that branch right at Squirrel, but it's a big branch, it's a little squirrel, so I don't think it's really Squirrel's fault that the branch actually hit Squirrel on the tail, and it made Squirrel's tail bump up like that. And that's why squirrels' tails bump up like that from then all the way until today. So Squirrel now was running down the mountain as fast as Squirrel could go, trying to haul that big branch behind her, and she saw Chipmunk up ahead, and she threw the branch to Chipmunk, and Chipmunk caught the branch, but Chipmunk was a little bit intimidated by the whole situation, didn't really know what they'd signed up for, and they sort of froze for a second. And it didn't last that long. They realized what they needed to do was run, but when they turned and ran, the fire spirit that was chasing managed to claw their back with its claws and leave 3 white stripes. And that's why there are 3 white stripes on a chipmunk's back, all the way from then until today. So Chipmunk was running down the mountain real fast and saw Frog up ahead. Now, the branch had been burning and burning and burning this whole time until the point where it was just the size of a single coal, and Chipmunk tossed it to Frog, and Frog put it in its mouth, because what else is the frog going to do? And now it's hippity-hopping down the mountain as fast as it can and over a stream, and just as it's jumping into the air, the fire spirit caught it by the tail, caught Frog right by the tail, and the whole tail came off in the fire spirit's hand, and that's why frogs don't have tails anymore. It landed on the opposite side of the river. It out the coal, and the coal landed on wood, and wood wasn't going to give that fire up for anything. The fire spirit tried real hard. It tried attacking the wood with its knife. It tried asking the wood really nicely to give it back. It's kind of the wrong order of operations there, but okay. Tried doing a dance to convince it. It sang songs. It made all kinds of offerings. Wood was not going to give the fire up. But that's the thing. Wood wasn't going to give the fire up. It couldn't let go of the fire, and so it was just sort of stuck there with wood. And Coyote had another idea. We don't know if this idea came from the 3 sisters who live in his stomach or not. Maybe so. But he said, I'm going to gather the people all around, and I'm going to take some sticks from wood and rub them together, and we'll put some dried leaves in there and maybe a little bit of dried moss and get it going real fast, and that's going to get the fire to come back out of the wood again. And so in this way, Coyote brought fire to the people so that they had light to see by when it was dark, so that they had heat to warm themselves by when it was cold, and they were not so afraid anymore. Now, I know this sounds like a story about how the darkness is bad and we need the fire to do something about it, and that's part of the story, but here's the part that I want to make sure we don't miss out on. Those 3 sisters, right? Remember them from before? Who live in Coyote's stomach? If it hadn't have been for them and their idea, none of this would have been possible, and we'd all be living in the dark from then all the way until now. And you know what? Where do they live? Inside of Coyote's stomach. Don't you think it's got to be pretty dark in there?
Do not be afraid of the darkness. Dark is the rich, fertile earth that cradles the seed, nourishing growth. Dark is the soft night that cradles us to rest. Only in darkness can stars shine across the vastness of space. Only in darkness is the moon's dance so clear.
There is mystery woven in the dark, quiet hours. There is magic in the darkness. Do not be afraid. We are born of this magic. It fills our dreams that root, unravel, and reweave themselves in the shelter of the deep, dark night.
The dark has its own hue, its own resonance, its own breath. It fills our soul not with despair, but with promise. Dark is the gestation of our deep and knowing self. Dark is the cave where we rest and renew our soul.
We are born of the darkness, and each night we return to the deep, moist womb of our beginnings. Do not be afraid of the darkness, for in the depth of that very darkness comes a first glimpse of our own light, the pure inner light of love and knowing. As it glows and grows, the darkness recedes. As we shed our light, we shed our fear and revel in the wonder of all that is revealed.
So do not rush the coming of the sun. Do not crave the lengthening of the day. Celebrate the darkness here and now, a time of richness, a time of joy. The winter solstice is the time when the light grows less, when the nights last longer and the sun, even by day, hangs lower in the sky. Many of the celebrations and revels of this season serve to challenge the darkness, to hold it at bay, to bring light into lightless hours, to drive back the night. But we come together at this time in part to celebrate the darkness of this season, the opportunities for pause and introspection that it offers, the chance for new wisdom, and the rediscovery of joy that it represents.
Come down, O darkness, the absence of the presence of light which is inside of every sealed box, which blankets the earth each time that night falls, and is the natural, healthy arrangement of things inside of our own living bodies. Come and take your place of honor at this season. Teach us to move beyond our fear of you, the fear of whatever we ourselves bring into your emptiness. Let us rest in your hallowed hollow and not rush on too quickly into the light. O darkness, may you be a friend to us, and may we, in turn, be friends to you.
And now as we sing together the words of number 389 in our gray hymnal, Gathered Here, we invite you to come forward to where these great many candles are lit. Choose one, take up one of the candle snuffers, and extinguish it, symbolically making just a little more space for darkness in the world and in yourself. As you do so, hold in your heart these questions. What do you need to learn from the winter ahead? What do you need to discover it? What does the dark have to teach you?
We'll sing through the hymn 3 times. Gathered here in the mystery of the heart, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the ark, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power. Spirit, draw near.
We bless this time with words from Joyce Rupp. This year, I do not want the dark to leave me. I need its wrap of silent stillness, its cloak of long-lasting embrace. Too much light has pulled me away from the chamber of gestation.
Let the dawns come late. Let the sunsets arrive early. Let the evenings extend themselves while I lean into the abyss of my being.
Let me lie in the cave of my soul, for too much light blinds me, steals the source of revelation.
Let me seek solace in the empty places, places of winter's passage, those vast dark nights that never fail to shelter me. Each week we gather, carrying with us in our hearts all of the joys and all of the losses of recent days. We hold our own pains and celebrations and those of the ones we love. We share these here knowing they are held gently in care and support and love. We light a candle today for Ramiah Whiteside, who passed away on December 4th. Ramiah was recently here speaking at FUS with his work as the Associate Director of Expo, Ex-Incarcerated People Organizing. Ramiah used his powerful and gentle voice to share the stories of incarcerated people and to share his goal of seeing the use of any form of incarceration as the absolute last resort. We join the many who are grieving the loss of his bright light. We send our love to his family, friends, all who knew and loved him. May we carry his message, his passion, his light forward. And we light a candle for those celebrating Hanukkah, which begins at sundown tonight. May your festival be one of joy and light, and may liberation come to you and to us and to all people swiftly and complete. And we light a candle in solidarity with the people of Ukraine, both in their suffering and in their struggle. Together we yearn for peace, for them and for all people, and for an end to all wars of conquest anywhere and everywhere on earth. And if you'll join me now in a moment of meditation with these words from Elizabeth Strong. We find ourselves here in the midst of the season of celebration. Celebrations of the birth of new hope, of the festival of lights, of the returning of the light. The darkness of the year is lifting, and the time of light begins to grow longer. We have gathered with an anticipation of hope for peace on earth and in our homes. We gather in this season of celebration, seeking comfort to soften the pain and the losses our lives have suffered in the fast retreating year. We gather to worship joyfully within this season of celebration with the tenderness and the love of family and friends around us. Let us be embraced by the strength and power of this sacred space that we each bring as we create this beloved community. Let joy and sorrow join in the fullness of our living. Let the power and strength we embody join us together as we move through the seasons of celebration into a new year with a new vision of hope for peace. Let us rest for a moment together as we hold all that lives within our hearts. Blessed be, and amen.
There is a love holding us. There is a love holding all that we love. There is a love holding all. We rest in this love. Now let's rise in body and/or in spirit to sing a celebration of the new year. Deck the hall. Deck the hall with boughs of holly. Fa la 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 la. 'Tis the season to be jolly. Fa la 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 la. Don we now our gay apparel. Fa la 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 la. Trow the ancient Yuletide carol. Fa la 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 la. See the blazing new, ye lads and lasses, fa la 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 la. Sing we joyous all together, fa la 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 la. Heed the sound of wind and weather, fa la 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 la.
On these dark nights, may we observe the stars. On these long nights, may we find rest. On these days of winter, may we feel warmth. On all the days to come, may our minds see the infinity of space, may our bodies find rest, and may our spirits feel the warmth of community. May it be so. Blessed be. Go in peace, and please be seated for the postlude.
Good.